that we have many participants and more people are joining. So hello all, hello BA community. I'm very glad to welcome you on our next session inside Thinking Outside the Box conference. Please, okay. My name is Nicoleta Spasova and I'm on the position of Competency Manager in SoftServe, and I will be moderating our session today. Although we are almost at the end of this awesome conference, I hope you all enjoyed. There's even more to come today and tomorrow, so let me share that the panel discussion will be held today in the afternoon, and the topic will be, is there a life after business analysis? And I'm really excited to remind you also that Deborah Poe will close our conference tomorrow, Friday, with her lecture on how the service design worldview aligns with business analysis. But now let's get back to the topic of our meeting today. And let me first remind you about the rules of our meeting. I would like to ask you just to stay muted during the whole presentation so that we won't interrupt our great speaker today. And please feel free to drop your questions in the chat during the presentation part. And at the end, our speaker will be able to answer all your questions. And now I'm really pleased to introduce our next conference speaker, who is an inspiring example, I would say, of business analyst with multi-domain experience. And here is now Krszysztof Kolosowski. He's currently developing one of the clusters within Center of Excellence in SoftServe. He's playing the role of business analysis cluster lead while managing more than 14 BAs in different locations like Poland, Bulgaria, Ukraine. And also Krszysztof, he's a co-founder of Business Analyst Meetup in Wroclaw, and he's also a speaker on multiple conferences. And also, let me share that he's freshly IABA certified in product ownership analysis. And as I had the honor to meet him like a couple of times before and being his moderator on other meetups, I can say that he's really keen on effective and interactive meetings, and he always applies like his untraditional approach to the projects. So I promise you, you will see that today. And I don't want to waste much time, and let me give the floor to Krszysztof, who will talk about how to sell the future and Goldsmith technology commercialization model in practice. Let's follow him on this product journey, and let's see how we can use this model in our setting. So Krszysztof, the stage is yours.
Hello, thank you very much for the kind introduction. It will be quite an unconventional presentation for me because it's like the first presentation that I'm doing like outside of office setting in general, because the thing is that I'm abroad right now, and that's why the view is quite different from the office setting. But I decided to participate in the conference anyway, because I think that the topic that I have to present for you today is quite an interesting one. And it fits into the whole concept of the conference, which is thinking outside of box. So let's step in. I want to play a game with you. This will be quite an unorthodox presentation because it will be up to you how long the presentation will take, actually. I do not know if you're familiar with the concepts of choose your own adventure. So there's been multiple different books in the past. I've been a huge fan of them as well, which was choose your own adventure. So it works in a way that when you're reading a book, you have different selections on different stages in your journey. So for example, there's like a selection that you need to choose, and then you go to a different page, and based on the outcome of your selections, you have a different adventure. So the latest application of it was actually within Netflix Black Mirror Bandersnatch. So it was the similar concept. So you also had to like choose your own adventure on the way, and then you've decided how the whole story will unfold. And that's what we'll do here today as well. So we'll have a couple of different choices throughout the way where you'll be able to vote which path we will choose. And then we'll see where we will go. Okay. So moving on to the topic. The Goldsmith commercialization model is a model that's been established, or framework that's been established by one of the universities, which is used to validate new business ventures as such. So this is the model in general. As you can see, it's quite complicated. We have 6 different steps that are used to guide the whole business throughout the whole adventure, from the very start when the technology emerges or a product emerges to the very end where we achieve a business maturity. We as a BAs, we are interested in just a part of it. So we are not interested in the whole picture. We are not interested in all of the steps, but we can be actually, because if we want to develop our own ventures, we can actually go through all of the steps. But when the new technology emerges, we as a BAs are focused on just a couple of different steps. So this is the quadrant that interests us the most, which is focused around the assessment, around the studies, around checking the feasibility, building plans, and then validating those plans. All of those things that are around us are related more to the technological part of the process, or the part of the actual starting the project. When you are developing a new technology, and that's also what we are doing within SoftServe. So for example, our R&D department is using this particular framework to validate the technologies that are coming to us. There are a couple of projects, ongoing projects that we actually are using this particular framework. And that's also what inspired me to talk about this framework to you as well, because I've been a part of one of the projects. So if we want to validate a new technology, these are the steps that we go through. And based on these steps, we are actually making sure whether the technology will be endorsed on the market or not. And here we have our first choice. So we will have 3 different products. Tears for gas, which is transforming tears in fuel. The mind readers, so the technology to read others' minds. And here the color. And that's your choice now. Make your choice, which technology we should go to. All right. Let's just wait till the whole minute, and then we'll go. Okay. So the mind readers. First of all, when we are thinking about validating the new technology, we need to think about market needs. So we first of all define unique features of a product. So for example, in this particular way, you need to think, what is such a differentiator for your product or for your technology that would make it available to be sold on the market? So let's say that for this particular example, as mind readers, we might say that this is something completely new. This provides another level of information, or another layer of information. And like a form factor of this particular technology could also be one of the features. Then we identify the competition. So what we do during this step, we try to see what is the competitors landscape. What are the competitors, not only direct competitors, but indirect as well. So for example, if we think about reading mind in general, there are not that many competitors, right? Let's say, okay, that might be some military technologies, that's this mythical truth serum, for example, that is used, that might be some of the competitions or something like that. But then again, there's not that many competitors, direct competitors for this particular technology. But then when it comes to indirect competitors, those are like the interviewers techniques and so on. So like all of the things that might not be directly comparable, but also might have an impact on the business that you're running. Then we are identifying potential customers. And as potential customers, we mean the customers that we want to sell the product to. And then we identify potential market barriers. So based on that, we have a market study to make. So there are several different industries that can aim for this particular product. We have military, medicine, and finance. So choose which one of the industries you would like to go. Okay, medicine it is then. And this is where the interesting path begins, because the presentation has been designed that there is only one way, so to speak, to win the whole presentation and to get the whole content. In this particular way, well, the initial reception of the product was great, but people didn't know exactly how to work with it. And that was until psychiatric court started to use it against patients well. And this generated a lot of bad press and ultimately sank the whole project. So sorry, but in this particular path, we are losing the game. So let's try again. And let's try to explore. I won't make a choice here. Well, I won't give you a choice. We'll go to the good path, okay? So the good path is actually Tears for Gas. All right, so here we have a bit more content, so to speak. So first of all, we have those market needs that I told you about. So here we have defined some of the things that might be actually content of the report in general. So those unique features might be that this is the unlimited source of fuel, it's easy to obtain, and it's portable as a technology. Then when it comes to competitions, we have both gas companies, which are our direct competition, and also alternative energy source promoters, which are not direct competitors, but also they're influencing the way that the product is developed. And then when it comes to our potential customers, we have the automotive industry. We have end customers that might be interested in sourcing the alternative fuel source, so to speak, and fuel distributors in general. So those big companies that are harvesting fuel from different sources and then selling to the fuel distributors. And when it comes to market barriers, this is quite a controversial product because, yeah, Tears for Gas, it might be quite controversial, so it might be quite difficult to sell. Then we are entering a highly regulated market because fuel market is a regulated market and we need to figure out all of the additional barriers on the market that might block us. For example, there might be some local regulations that might prevent us from selling the fuel and so on. So this is something that we need to figure out. And then it might require some connections to enter the market as well. So it's not that easy to enter the market in general. And then again, it might require some additional connection for us to even start selling. But here is an open source task for you, because there are two additional steps for defining the market needs. We are thinking about distribution channels, and we're thinking about product pricing criteria. So based on your own experience, you could try to figure out what should be the distribution channels or what should be product pricing criteria. I specifically didn't put any content here, just for you to try to think about it. So when it comes to distribution channels, it might be like a direct distribution channel to connect with the competitors, or we might sell it as a white label. We can make it as a part of a franchise deal with other companies, or we might build our own distributors. So it all depends on different factors. That's why I didn't want to put any content here, just to not block us in the way that we can define it. And then when it comes to product pricing criteria, it is also highly dependent on the different distribution markets. So for example, if we have a white label approach, the product pricing criteria will be different, because then it requires us to create some products that might be then labeled by a different producer, different distributor, and used by them in such a manner. When it comes to our own franchise, we need to build additional franchise chain, so to speak, and then the rules that we need to follow, and then try to build the proper contracts and use a product in that setting. When it comes to direct sales, we need to build our own distribution network and so on. So this is also something that influences our product pricing. So these are like a different steps, different variants that you need to choose for defining the product pricing criteria. And then based on the distribution channels that you select, the product pricing criteria might differ a lot. So that's why I didn't want to limit us here, and just to try to speak it out and then try to give you some of the examples how it might be defined. So moving on, the next step that we have in our journey is the market study. So when we are defining the market, as you already saw within the mind readers, we have a couple of different choices to decide. So usually what we do is that we select a couple of different markets and then try to see which market is the best one to sell the product to. So let's say that for this particular market that we have this example, we'll have oil and gas market. So what we do for this particular step, we are describing the whole market environment. So as a first step, we describe how the whole landscape of fuel looks like right now within the world, and what are the possibilities, what are the trends, what are the technologies. So let's say that you're, for example, figuring out a new product in an AR environment. You would then define the AR market and try to analyze the AR market, how it looks right now, what are the trends, what are the possibilities. Use, for example, a couple of different reports from Gartner or different reporting agencies to see what are the possibilities and how the market is unfolding. And then based on that, we identify the different markets that we want to address our product to. So in this particular manner, we are aiming for the oil and gas market, and we are trying to identify the market trends. So the same exercise, right? We are still using the reports. We are gathering the data and trying to define those things that might be valuable within this particular study. After that, we quantify the market size. So as you can see on this particular example, we have some figures that we have here, right? So we have what is the size of a market in different setting based on different years. There might be some predictions going on in the future, and that's also what we've been doing with different products as well. So we are using different types of reports, then try to combine all of the data and see what is the potential size of the market and what are the segments of the market. So in this particular step, we are analyzing the whole capabilities of the market. We are trying to define the different factors that might influence us, and we are trying to define how big is the market actually, whether it's even possible to sell some of the things to the market, because based on these studies, it might be the outcome of these studies might be that, for example, the product that we are trying to offer to the market won't sell because the trend goes in a different way, and it might not be possible to figure it out in that particular market. So as a milestone within this step, what we have after market study is the primary market research report. And based on that report, we are building our artifacts towards the future as well. So the next step is the economic feasibility. So the main outcome of the economic feasibility for us as an analyst is a financial analysis that identifies break-even scenarios based on price, volume of sales, and costs. So here we are trying to predict the future for a bit. So based on all of the data that we've defined previously, so like the market needs, define different types of customers, define different types of market that we want to hit, define different distribution channels and pricing criteria, we are trying to figure out what is the break-even scenario, taking into consideration different criteria. So does the venture demonstrate a positive economic feasibility or not? Have we even developed some of the break-even scenarios for this venture? And based on all of those data, we decide whether it's even possible to go further with the venture. So as you can see, each of the steps that we go throughout this journey are the steps that are actually validating the whole idea. And each of the steps takes us a bit further. So first of all, we are validating the market needs. Then we are validating the market in general. Then we are validating even if it's sellable. So do we have a proper business model and pricing criteria to sell? And then we are summarizing it in the form of a strategic planning. So based on the strategic planning, we are building the whole market strategy. We are summarizing all of the previous steps. So we are asking questions like, have we selected the proper target markets? Have we selected the market niche that we want to address? Or have we selected a price that we want to go with? Based on those questions, we are defining the whole strategy when we are selecting market, distribution channel, price. So like the final strategy that we want to go to the market with. And if we have this particular strategy, we can focus on validating the product in general. So based on this whole strategic plan, one of the steps is building the prototype in general. We do not have that much influence when it comes to building the prototype as analysts. Well, we might provide some of the requirements that we may figure out for the market needs, and from identifying the competition, identifying the potential market niches. But then again, when it comes to building the prototype, it all depends on the way how the technology is mature, and whether whether it's even possible to build a feasible prototype. There might be cases when, for example, the technology is on an early stage of development, and then within this early stage of development, we cannot build a prototype based on this technology. And we are just visualizing some of the scenarios. So let's say that we are making a POC in general, and then based on the POC, we might be able to build some of the marketing materials to promote the product or how the product will look like in the future. There might be cases where we will have a working technology, and then we will be able to build a product based on this technology and try to promote it to the markets. So it all depends on the maturity of the technology that we have and the different stages of the journey that we are in. So when we have a prototype ready, we can validate the market. When it comes to validating the market, there are like different steps that we can follow. So these are like two different proposals that we might make for this particular validation. But before we choose our step, let's describe the validation process. So when it comes to validation process, it might work in a different way. So what I've told you about the prototype, we might have a different scenarios. So let's say that in this particular case, we do not have the feasible product yet. We have a concept and we can sell the idea in general. So we are just looking for a funding. But in different scenarios, we can conduct, for example, limited sales of a product. We could quantify the volume, rates, and demographic of sales of a product based on some of the demos of a product that we have. We might create some of the campaigns on the social media to see whether we have clout around the product in general. And in this particular case, we have two different ways of validating the product. So we have a website campaign, or we have a car show exhibition. So make your choice here. Okay, so with one vote winning, we have a car show. And that was actually a good outcome. So congratulations, you made quite an impression on some of the car manufacturers. With a few deals on the table, leave the car show thinking about your bright future with a product. All right, so based on the validation that we have, we are analyzing all of the sources of information that this particular validation may provide. So let's say that in this particular scenario, we have a couple of deals on the table. So we might see what are the scenarios, possible scenarios of developing the product in the future. And then we can go back, for example, to a drawing table and try to reiterate the strategy of a product that we have. If we would run a website, in this particular scenario, we would fail the game because from different reasons. I won't spoil it right now. But if we would run a website campaign, we could, for example, analyze the feedback about the product that we would have. So for example, we might have some of the free text fields and so on that would help us to analyze how the potential customers feels about the product, or what is the outcomes of the customers that they have around the whole technology in general. And then if we take all of this feedback and we take this feedback into the product, we could develop actually a better product for the future. And when it comes to the whole framework and the steps that we follow, that's actually it. So right now I'll take the questions.
Thanks, Krszysztof. I hope that we will receive just now many questions. So guys, be active. Just raise your questions in the chat and I will be reading them one by one. So we just received one question. So let me read it. It's from Mike Kosoban. Have you tried this commercialization model on project at SoftServe? If yes, can you give more details about that?
Actually, yes. I've been a part of product development within R&D. I cannot say I cannot say about the technology in general because it's confidential and I've signed an NDA. But when it comes to the way that this model has been used, we've actually followed all of the steps. So we've identified the potential markets, we've identified the trends. So we've used a couple of different reports for Gartner to analyze how the market looks in general and what are the trends. And this actually validated our approach that we had. Based on that, we've identified a couple of use cases that we would like to follow. So like building a product in general, because in this particular case, we had only a technology without a scenario how to use it. So that was quite similar to the cases that we had in this presentation, because you have the technology, but what is the actual usage of the technology, whether it's even feasible to sell it to customers. And that were the questions that we had to answer when we were working on this product as well within SoftServe. Actually, there are also a couple of different products that are following this particular path as well. So there's like a quite big initiative, which is called Horizon 2020, which is funded by the European Union. You can browse the site and you can see like vast projects and multiple different projects with different technologies that are using this particular funding method. And all of the projects that are built around this particular initiative, which is Horizon 2020, are the ones that are unique when it comes to the technology used. So think of AR, think of haptic feedback, think of one of the technologies demos that we had within SoftServe, which is Touch My Heart, right? So that's like quite similar to the ones that we had also. And that's like an example of a technology that might be validated.
Okay, thanks for sharing that. One more question from Irina Perli. Do you look up for proper use cases for emerging technologies? How do you look up for proper use cases for emerging technologies? Is the question.
So this is like a part of a journey that we have within this whole exercise, because as you've noticed, we are identifying the market needs in general. So market needs might be identified in different manners. So it might be in form of campaigns where we get the feedback from a market. It might be an actual need from customers that we've been working with already. Or it might be a part of the ideation study that we are doing. So based on that, we might have a couple of different use cases that we have, and then we validate those use cases to see whether those use cases are actually a proper use cases, so to speak. So it's like an iterative process with building the use cases. So first of all, we are trying to define them based on some of the assumptions, and then we validate those assumptions. And based on those validations, we are trying to figure out of the better use cases, so to speak. I hope that I have answered your question.
Yeah, Irina, just in case if you have any comments, just feel free to unmute yourself. Okay, she wrote in the chat that that's okay. And I also have one question, Chris. Is this model suitable for enhancements or for some upgrades of existing products, or it better works only with new ideas?
It better works on the new ventures, actually. When it comes to enhancing, I guess that there might be some better, well, okay, let me reiterate a bit. I wouldn't judge it so harsh here. So it's suited for new technologies, it's suited for new ventures, but I see some of the parts of this particular process that might be used within enhancing the product in general. Because we are using it's not something new, right? Because those steps that we are doing are the ones that we are already doing within our work. Because we are already doing researches, we are validating some of the markets, we are gathering the data from different places, defining the needs, and so on. So those are actually things that we do as an analyst. And when it comes to enhancing, some of the steps might be used as well. So for example, if we do not know the way that we want to follow to enhance some of the product, then we could try to find the market niche, find the market needs, and find the proper use cases for addressing these enhancements. But then again, if we know what we want to do, that's not a good framework to follow. So it's more of a figuring out where to go, what to do, rather than establishing already a plan that we have in mind.
Yeah, thanks. That's clear. Thank you. And one more question from Natinazar. Have you ever thought of applying this choose an option approach with a client, like choose the feature for the next sprint and where it leads us further? It might be a fun experience, Nati says.
So actually, within this particular project that we've been working on, we've been working with a customer, of an external customer. So this was like a conglomerate of a couple of different parties. So we were one of the parties which were responsible for following this particular model. Then we had a different party responsible for the technology and technology development itself, and then the other one for the business venture itself. So like we had a company that had a product and a supplier for this product, and we've been trying to figure out the future and the way to go with this product for them. So we were giving them some of the advices of where to go, how to promote the product, how to gather the feedback, and so on. As far as I know, this product is still an ongoing product. So probably when it comes to outcomes of it, we will see it in a year and a half, something like that.
Okay, we just received a comment from Mikita that your Mac will sleep soon. I hope that you are prepared with that.
I know. I have an iPhone on a standby just to connect from it as well.
Okay, just going further with the question. So we have one more from Petro Kersta, and the question is, are all steps or stages in the model iterative?
That's a good question. It all depends on the satisfaction level that you have. So the main concept is that you just go through it and that's it. But based on the iterative approach, my understanding and how we've used it is that you can actually have an iterative approach for it. So you can make those steps and the outcome of those steps greater with each and every iteration. Just as I mentioned in the previous questions, answer for the previous question, that this particular technique, like for example, figuring the proper use cases, that's where the iterative approach comes into it.
Okay, thank you. One more from Mike Kosovan. It's about once you find a market need, can you give more details how you test your idea or prototype?
Okay, so it all depends on what you've selected and what is the proper scenario here. So it might be that, for example, okay, let's try to have a real scenario. You might identify that one of the markets that you want to aim for and the niches is a specialty cosmetic boutiques, right? And let's say that your technology would help to increase the sales of a particular skincare products. And this is your market niche. So how you can test it? You can actually test it by going to the companies that are actually having those boutiques and developing those products and see whether this particular product is usable for them. So you're going directly.
Hello,
we will wait for him. He needs to reconnect probably.
Yeah, I guess that he will be back in a second.
Mark actually went sleeping probably.
Well, such things happen from time to time. Hope that he would be able to resolve this issue and he would be back. So. Good
I do
not one more time. Yeah.
I do not know how much you've heard about actually.
Well, it's hard to say because you just was lost for a couple of seconds. I even thought that something wrong happened to my network, but seems no. So yeah, maybe just you can repeat like your answer of the whole question.
Okay, it was about validating the niche in a market. In this particular scenario, you just go directly to the customer that you want to follow. So in this particular manner, for example, let's say that you are aiming for the skincare products, then you go directly to the producer of those skincare products and validating this particular product with them. So that's how you validate the niche, actually, whether it's a good choice. The other scenarios would be, for example, that you go directly to the fairs that those companies are presenting on. So, for example, like conferences of those markets and so on, to get the contacts and to try to speak to those exact customers that you want to address your product to. So that would be like a couple of different scenarios how you can validate the market niche.
Okay, now Mike Kusuban, do you want to elaborate on the topic more, or that close your questions? Okay, I can see
my question. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Okay, and we have one more from Mariana Knishchenko. She starts with a comment that she saw cases when some ideas were validated with potential consumers, and a lot of potential consumers were excited and was ready to buy a product when it will be developed. But when the product was ready, there were not so many people who really bought it. So do you have some recommendations how to avoid such situations, and maybe some specific techniques to use? So do you have any ideas here, Chris?
You see, there's always a risk that there's always a risk in that particular manner, because you might have those customers that might be interested when they do not need to spend money, but then when they figure out the amount of money that need to be spent, then you have a problem. There's particular examples from the current market environment as well. So, for example, one of the latest situations that I've encountered was with Starlink, so the internet from Elon Musk, so internet from space. So everything is fine and dandy. You see that might be a potentially good technology. That is the technology that you're interested in because it's like internet from everywhere. And then you see a price and you're thinking, okay, I do not know if I want to spend that much money. So like one of the ideas to offer this particular technology would be to validate it throughout the crowdfunding campaigns, for example. So that's for some of the ideas. I do not say that it will work in all of the cases, but because I do not see myself, for example, investing in some kind of enterprise that is already established in the market and they want to develop a new technology. But when it comes to some of the startups with new technology, Kickstarter or like Indiegogo or whatever different crowdfunding campaigns might be the actual way to go. So based on this model, when you have the appropriate pricing criteria and you have a break-even scenario, you can actually model the prices in a way that would then enable you to produce a product. And the good thing about those campaigns is that people are paying money. So they're not only saying that they would be interested in the technology, but they are actually paying for a product that they will get in the future. So that's like might be one of the ideas.
Yeah, and as a follow-up on that question, how do you validate product market fit?
Product market fit.
Yeah.
That's a hard one. It's like a combination of different steps because it's based on the response that you have from market, right? So we are working on assumptions, and when you want to sell the future, you need to have a lot of assumptions that you have in mind when you're trying to define some of the feasible scenarios. And then you just need to validate those assumptions. So there's like no other steps than running with it.
Yeah, true. One more question from Petro. It's about the legal considerations. How do you protect your intellectual property?
I might not understand the question. So could you elaborate a bit more?
Yeah, sure. Hey, so let's say you have this awesome idea, new tech. So once you start showcasing it, if it hasn't been protected, well, someone can snatch your idea and sell it as their own, right? So yeah, do some patenting, some stuff like that. Because I mean, it's good to showcase it and have some feedback from the community, but there is a risk that someone's going to roll it out before you do. Say someone likes of Amazon and Microsoft who has a potential and business behind it to do it really fast and outbeat you.
Yeah, so patenting might be one of the ways, but it all depends on the country that you're trying to offering it in as well. So there's no like one way to follow it. It is just a common sense and combination of the legal protection that you might do in a country that we are promoting it. The thing is that, for example, the technology might be so bizarre that it might require a lot of investments from different companies to actually get into the level that you are on. So it all depends on the step that you're in with your technology, and it all depends on the popularity of the technology that you're using. So for example, if you're trying to use a technology that's already popular, but you're trying to do a new application of it, it's more fragile rather than the completely new technology. So there's like no single way of protecting it. I know cases where, for example, some of the companies were robbed and are still fighting with major companies. So for example, there was a really large case in Poland. There's been a company that tried to develop a product that would enable self-checkout on the gas stations. So let's say that you're just tanking your car, and rather than going to pay to the booth, you just scan a QR code and you're paying for it. And they've been quite popular, but then a main company that have been using it actually blocked the application and developed the application that looked exactly the same, and they are still fighting. So there are cases like that, and that's something that you cannot avoid. So there's like no right answer here, sadly.
Petro, any comments on that?
Thanks. Yeah, it's a harsh word, especially when it comes to the money. So it's a Shark Tank.
Okay, thank you. Maybe one more question from my side, like maybe is the sum up of the presentation. I know that there is also some other commercialization models, not only this Goldsmith. I'm not so familiar with the rest of them, but can you give us some clarity, like what are the main advantages? What are the biggest advantages of using this like Goldsmith one?
The main advantage for me would be that it's already established and it's like followed by many different companies, and there are many different use cases that the companies are using it successfully. What also matters for me in this particular manner is that it covers some of the steps that we're already doing as a BA. So there's like a lot of similarities of the stuff that we are doing as a BAs and the stuff that needs to be done within this commercialization model. So that's what convinced me here.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, thank you. Cool, guys. Any other questions? Yeah, we have one more in the chat. An experience when users suggested you technology use cases that you haven't thought of?
Yeah, actually, yeah. So the customers that we've been working for suggested some of the use cases that were related to the circular economy, which is which is one of the major trends within the business right now, and we didn't thought about it. We've been so focused on trying to figure out those differentiating use cases that we didn't think about the use cases that were just right around the corner. So yeah, that might happen as well. And it's also usable because the customers that are developing the technology, they know the technology the best, and they know some of the potential use cases that might be used. For example, they might have already some of the established business connections, or they might have third-party customers that would like to use their technology in a particular setting. And then we could just use those use cases or snatch those use cases from the customers and try to standardize them and try to build rapport around them as well.
Okay, We still have some more minutes, so guys, if you have any comments, questions, now it's the time to raise them. Maybe we can just wait a bit for more questions, and meanwhile, I just want to thank you, Chris, for this amazing interactive presentation. From my side, I'm sure that I have learned new things regarding all those models. And yeah, I hope that everybody of us learn something new and will be able to apply that into practice. I also would like to remind you that in the afternoon, we are going to have the panel discussion. So I believe that we will have really interesting panelists there: Dmitru Zubec, Andriy Berezyuk, Rustam Magomedov, Anastasia Shipolska, and the moderator of that session will be Kirill Bilyavsky. So it will be really interesting. Speakers will share their stories, experience, will give some practical like advices. So if you have time, just to join that session in the afternoon. And tomorrow is the last day of our conference, so we'll have Deborah Paul in the morning, and in the afternoon we will have the awards presentation. So no more. We have one more.
Yeah, one more question about the ROI. Sadly, I cannot answer this question, but I can give you some of the contacts that you can go to try to get some information from them, like from the R&D department in our company.
Mm-hmm. Do you think we can include them into the follow-up letter?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, okay, that would be good. Yeah, so guys, you will all receive a follow-up letter after this presentation. And also I would like to remind you to fill in the survey form. And we have a lot of appreciation comments in the chat, a lot of thank you. So it was, yeah, really great presentation, Krszysztof. Thanks a lot. And yeah, have a great vacation. I know that you're on vacation this whole week, and you even though you spent some time with us, so we really appreciate that. Enjoy your time and see you soon.
Yeah, see you soon. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you.